power! Fight for power! Fight
Everyone
for power!
had a feeling that something great was happening.
We want the black people on the wall of fame!
I don't think I've ever been more powerfully affected by a film than I was affected by Do the Right Thing.
I'd never seen something that was this in your face about what's right under the surface.
Bagel wop, guinea, garlic bread, pizza slingers,
fried chicken and biscuit eating monkey.
Bagel ain't the lot, but name for this Jew ass.
In 1989, a landmark movie shook the nation by ripping the veil off racism in America.
They thought that there was going to be rioting in the theaters.
I really feel Do the Right Thing brought race back to the forefront, for a minute at least.
How Spike Lee's Do the Right Thing rocked New York, revolutionized race in the movies, and toppled a political superstar.
He wanted to bring Koch down, and he brought Koch down.
Do the Right Thing will go down in Hollywood history as one of the most provocative, one of the most significant and important films ever.
Do the Right Thing, up next on Movies That Shook the World. Hollywood spends $10 billion a year making movies. Some hit, some miss, some shake the world.
Now, you keep it up, you're going to end up in the street with the rest of your homeboys.
Look at those Korean mother across the street.
I'm sick of niggas.
May 1989. Spike Lee's Do the Right Thing premiered in Cannes to ovations and outrage.
This film takes a very despairing view of an amicable relationship between the races.
Why did you feel it necessary to have Mookie precipitate the final riot at the end?
Everybody in the movie have a reason for violence.
Malcolm X.
Malcolm X.
Malcolm X.
There were some people that were powerfully affected very negatively. One American journalist who I sat next to during the press conference felt that the film should not be released because it was too dangerous, that it would cause, as she said, riots in the streets.
Young director Spike Lee fired back at his critics.
If anything happens this summer, it won't be because of this film, it'll be because cops killed somebody else for no reason. But it won't be because of Do the Right Thing. Come on, Miss Mother Sister.
Now, Mookie, don't work too hard today. The man says it's gonna be hot as the devil. I don't want
The film's premiere proved as controversial as the events that inspired it. Spike Lee had grown up in a turbulent New York.
We were the first black family to move into Cabo Hill, predominantly Italian-American. And the first day or so, we got called nigger and that.
As Lee graduated from film school in the early 80s, the city, under then Mayor Koch, was a racial cauldron.
How am I doing?
3 white youths have been arrested in the attack and charged with murder.
5 white teenagers have been arrested so far in this latest racial attack.
Today, 4 teenage boys were arrested and charged with assault.
3 black men were set upon by a group of white teenagers.
There are 2 men charged with this murder of a black 16-year-old.
A gang of up to 30 white youths
swinging baseball bats and golf clubs.
And reportedly shouted, "Niggers go home."
Under the non-leadership, I'm going to say, of Mayor Ed Koch, New York City had become very polarized racially. And there were numerous incidents of police brutality leading to deaths. Eleanor Bumpers, Michael Stewart.
In 1983, young black graffiti artist Michael Stewart died being subdued by New York cops.
A whole bunch of cops just jumped on him and put that chokehold on him and died. In fact, when Ray Rahim gets killed at the end of The Right Thing, in the script I wrote, that's the Michael Stewart chokehold.
A year later, in '84, tensions exploded when the police used deadly force trying to evict an elderly black woman.
Eleanor Bumpers, who was an old black woman who was in her apartment, and the police broke the door down and shot her a number of times.
But it was the shocking Howard Beach event in 1986 that rocked New York and galvanized Spike Lee.
3 black men driving home. A car breaks down in the Howard Beach section of New York, predominantly Italian American. They go in this pizzeria to use the phone called AAA. They're chased out of the pizzeria by a gang of bat-wielding, it's always the bats, bat-wielding young Italian-American youths. One of the guys is chased upon the Belt Parkway, where he's hit by a car.
We are tired of our lives being minimized.
This incident can only be described as rivaling the kind of lynching party that existed in the Deep South.
As New York teetered on a racial abyss, an outraged Spike Lee struggled to come to grips with his city's atmosphere of hate.
These incidents really were the impetus for this film.
You see a black person, a colored person, first thing is you yell at them, you know? This is the way it is in this neighborhood.
I'm scared to go out my house because a bunch of white kids might jump on me. But I'll tell you now, I'll bust one of them in their head.
We go into their neighborhood, we get beat on, we get chased out. But when they come here, what are they doing here at 10 o'clock at night?
It was a great influence on him. I think Howard Beach had an incredible impact. Being a young filmmaker and just out of college and very, very intelligent and smart, decided that he had to make a statement about what was happening politically and how we were polarized.
He threw himself into a screenplay that would confront racism directly in a Brooklyn neighborhood on the hottest day of the summer. But nervous studio execs cringed.
Do the Right Thing should have been at Paramount Pictures. At the last moment, they wanted me to change the ending. Basically, they wanted Mookie and Sal to join hands and sing We the World at the end. And we weren't doing that.
Studio after studio slammed their doors. Finally, a determined Lee brought the script to Universal.
Tom Park said Spike would do it. $6.5 million, not a penny more. Take the money, make the film. And that's what happened.
From frame one, Lee infused the film with his anger and passion.
Hey, Sal, how come we got the brothers on the wall here?
You want brothers on the wall? Get your own place. You can do what you want to do.
The film centers on Sal's Pizzeria. Sal, played by Danny Aiello, is very much of a neighborhood patriarch. He is a white man. He's very tough.
You're gonna boycott me? Here's your boycott.
And he's got 2 sons, one of whom is very docile and mild-mannered, and the other of whom, played by John Turturro, is extremely belligerent, extremely racist.
I'm sick of niggas.
Everybody's been coexisting, you know, except that it's this particular weekend, it's very, very hot. And so it's the heat as well that just gets people's backs up.
We want the black people on the wall of fame now!
Sometimes the racial tensions of New York intruded onto the Brooklyn set.
Danny Aiello and I really liked each other and had a great on-screen relationship. And as we got closer and closer to shooting that scene, it became more and more difficult for us to speak to each other.
You're gonna close my place. You're gonna what?
Because you're dealing with something that's hate, and when you're trying to be an actor, you sometimes use past memories to bring up that certain anger again.
You mother, you cut.
It's something that you never forget.
But as Lee prepared to unveil his explosive vision to the bosses at Universal, rumors spread that the film was just too hot to release.
First time he showed it to the studio, they were like stunned.
And I think that was, you know, Spike's prove it moment. Do we really want a movie like this? I don't think they bargained for anything like that.
After stunned executives recovered from their shock, they nervously agreed to release the film. But in the tense atmosphere of 1989, doomsayers predicted massive violence.
The city is bracing for the opening of Spike Lee's controversial film.
There was a lot of pressure not to release this film.
Coming up, was Do the Right Thing going to wake up the world or blow it up?
I mean, people forget this, but there were articles, headlines saying that black people would revolt, go crazy, and riot all across this country because of Do the Right Thing.
Fear in Hollywood and anxiety at the box office when movies that shook the world returns.
Wake up! Wake up, wake up, wake up! Up you wake, up you
By
wake.
June 1989, Spike Lee had won his battles with nervous studio execs.
Serious? Yeah.
The film that premiered at Cannes was a profane, startling expose of racism in America.
Dago wop, guinea, garlic bread, pizza slingers, fried chicken and biscuit eating monkey.
Pointy shoes, red wearing, menudo, meter, Puerto Rican sucker. Yeah, you.
But would the public give it raves or riot in the streets?
You know you're going to be faced with the charge that the film advocates violence.
I know that.
That bother you?
No, it doesn't bother me because I know what I did. I did not make this film to incite violence or incite riots. We made this film to provoke thought and provoke discussion.
This film takes a very despairing view of even the possibility.
When I say a mess, I mean a lot of people are going to get hurt.
Doesn't that create some sort of a vicious circle?
Which of the characters actually did the right thing?
Would it bother you if the film gave rise to violence?
It would bother me. I don't think that's going to happen. I think it was very disrespectful to the intellect of the African-American movie-going audience. We're intelligent enough to understand the difference between a movie and going out and try to reenact a riot.
On June 30th, 1989, a nervous Universal opened Do the Right Thing across the nation, and Hollywood held its breath.
The city is bracing for the opening of Spike Lee's controversial film.
Needless to say, when the film was released, there were no riots. Sorry.
No, please. People started talking. There was a lot of conversation. There's no violence.
No riots at all.
Instead, curious Americans poured into the theaters, and the film's success prompted an overdue national soul-searching.
Spike Lee, let me begin with you. What have we left out?
I think that historically, as long as you're black, that's always going to be held against you.
I really feel Do the Right Thing brought race back to the forefront, for a minute at least.
The movie sparked a huge debate about the state of race relations. Where are we? How did we get here? Do African Americans need to riot? I mean, what was the motivation behind the riot?
There were white people that would come up to me and go, "That's not fair, I'm not racist. Why did he show that?" And I said, wow, the movie really moved you, huh?
And I think the film really does make the case for destruction of property. It does make the case for violence in self-defense.
So we got Reverend Al Sharpton to fight for us.
Coming on the heels of Al Sharpton's involvement with Tawana Brawley and Jesse Jackson's Hymietown incident, the film sparked a debate on the decline of civil rights leadership.
At that time, again, Sharpton wasn't ready to lead. Jesse Jackson, I think, has just made so many mistakes in terms of his personal life. So we don't have selfless leadership.
I think it did promote a national debate, not just about race, it's about where we are as a community now.
I want you not to feel sorry for me.
Many argue that the film even brought down one of America's political superstars.
And Mayor Ed Koch has been the mayor for the last 8 years. And what the mayor has accomplished in the last 8 years is divided the city down the line into black and white.
Well, he doesn't like Mayor Koch at all. He put the responsibility for the city's polarization squarely on Koch's shoulders.
I mean, you look in the background, there's graffiti, dump Koch. We just let him have it, wherever we could.
The film had a way of making Koch look totally impotent.
Mayor Koch, how I'm doing? Chocolate, egg cream drinking, bagel and lox, banana for this Jew ass.
In a close election, the film's indictment of New York's racial chaos may have tipped the scales against New York's mayor.
Dickens' election brought elation to New York's black neighborhoods.
So we got the first black mayor of New York City as a result.
He wanted to bring Koch down, and he brought Koch down.
Within months, Spike Lee proved prophetic. Blacks didn't riot in the aftermath of the movie, but the Yusef Hawkins murder in Bensonhurst showed that they continued to die in New York.
Lo and behold, the film comes out, and a couple months later, there's an incident in Bensonhurst where a black youth goes looking for an automobile in that part of the town and gets his head bashed in with baseball bats.
2 years later, in a scene right out of Do the Right Thing, Rodney King was violently beaten by LAPD officers. When Los Angeles exploded in rage, the similarities to Do the Right Thing were unmistakable. The LA riots were far bigger than anything Lee imagined. Many said it proved his point, but some critics saw a connection.
I actually believe that Do the Right Thing made a very serious contribution to some of the racial explosions that followed the film, including the Rodney King riots.
What prompted the LA riots was the fact that you saw Rodney King on camera being beat, within inches of his life by the cops. And those cops got off.
This is happening because an injustice was done.
We're not violent, you make us violent.
We had the crystal ball. Do the right thing. We tapped into that.
Coming up, Lee may have had a crystal ball about race, but in Hollywood itself, he was in for a nasty surprise.
They were not going to nominate Spike Lee for a directing prize or for Best Picture. This movie was too threatening to them.
Would the industry snub Spike Lee? And could he spark a Hollywood revolution? When Movies That Shook the World returns.
Always do the right thing.
Spike Lee seemed vindicated when Do the Right Thing sparked a nationwide debate about race.
We hope that the Academy members will take note of the fact that we're here and...
But when award season came around, it proved too hot to handle.
The work by Reiner, Robinson, and Weir, good as it was, cannot compare with any of these directors, none of whom was chosen. Paul Mazursky for Enemies: A Love Story, Spike Lee, Do the Right Thing.
They were not going to nominate Spike Lee for a directing prize or for Best Picture. This movie was too threatening to them.
I think it's interesting to realize that the year Do the Right Thing comes out, the movie that wins the Oscars is Driving Miss Daisy.
Hollywood always loved to showcase shackles on our feet. And in saying that, I don't want to discredit Morgan Freeman because he was phenomenal in that role.
It is not a surprise that the voters would prefer the Morgan Freeman chauffeur, that type of black man, versus to the black men in Do the Right Thing.
Spike Lee, he would have told Miss Daisy to kiss his ass. Said, yo, man, ain't gonna happen.
But 10 years later, Do the Right Thing was placed on the prestigious National Film Registry. It's now a staple of film studies.
Driving Miss Daisy is not being taught in high schools, colleges, universities today. No one is writing term papers about Driving Miss Daisy.
In the wake of Do the Right Thing, Spike Lee became a cultural icon.
You the man. No, you the man. No, you the man. You the man.
Lee used his visibility and bankability to push through a series of provocative features.
Let's get Robin, get on the stage, please.
But perhaps his greatest impact is as a mentor to a whole new generation of black filmmakers and actors.
That did not happen by accident. So we wanted to be like the launching pad.
In the end, Spike Lee has become a Hollywood institution, and Do the Right Thing's stature has grown with every year since its release.
Do the Right Thing, really, it defined an era, and it stands on its own now in the way that it assumed its place in that era.
It's become a cornerstone film for American cinema, yes. Yes.
When stuff happens like this, a lot of time it's luck. And it was the right time for a film about racism in this country. We just hit the moment.
What are you gonna do with yourself?
Make that money, get paid.